Gene, in your piece in the Washington Post, it's entitled Republicans Are Trying to Make Democrats Self-Implode, and in it, you write about the aforementioned Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. Quote, predictably, some Democratic hand-wringers are warning darkly that the very existence of left-of-center candidates, such as Ocasio-Cortez, in the bluest districts in the land will limit the party's potential gains in the House and imperil some Democrats in the Senate. The thing to do, these worrywarts counsel, is have all candidates stick to bland, centrist nostrums saying nothing that anyone might disagree with, which is exactly what the GOP wants.
Isn't that exactly what the Clinton campaign did last year?
If Democrats concentrate on winning and manage to take control of both chambers, which is what really ought to happen based on the Republicans' disgraceful performance, they will have difficulty reconciling the views of progressives and centrists. That's the kind of problem the party should want to have, rather than its current problem of utter powerlessness.
Gene, you know,
utter and complete.
I've been saying for years, and actually you've been saying it to my Democratic friends on the Hill. You know, you've got to make sure that your candidates match the district culturally, and that may mean, and we talk about it.
Wow,
maybe
it's like
you
we're
have,
talking about the
maybe
Republican
you have
Party.
maybe you have a pro-life Democrat in Kentucky. Maybe you have a pro-life Democrat in Alabama. Didn't need it with Doug Jones. I'm just saying, Democrats need to be open to it. The opposite of that is true as well. If you are in Queens and you are in a district that is very progressive, then baby, go progressive.
Yeah, exactly. This is, I thought this was like election 101, right? You know, you need to connect with the people you're asking to elect you. Therefore, if you are way, you know, to the left or to the right of their views, they're not going to elect you. They're going to elect the other person, and that's one fewer seat that your party has. I mean, it's just, you know, people are ask me all the time, worrying Democrats, you know, who are we going to run in 2020? Who, you know, who's out there? Who's going to beat him in 2020? And I forbid them to think about that. I say, don't think about that. You've got to think about 2018. Think about your district, your state. Think about this election coming up, because, as Mark said, there needs to be, and there has been, this sort of grassroots Democratic organizing. It has been going on. There's some excellent candidates out there that have been have sort of come out of nowhere. A lot of them former military. A lot of them, you know, interesting, not what your stereotypical Democratic candidates out there in the country, and, you know, support them, get the voters to the polls, win this election, and get some power back, and then you have a right to complain, and then you have some leverage to do something.
Well, you know, I was just going to say, Michael Steele, and, you know, you ran the Republican National Committee when it did extraordinarily well, and, you know, it's just not about ideology. Again, you look at Alexandria in Queens, she's just a star. And she's gonna be a star for a long time to come, most likely. Barack Obama. Nobody expected Barack Obama in 2007, other than Mika, to beat Hillary Clinton's campaign. But he was just a superstar. Ronald Reagan was a punchline on All in the Family. He was Archie Bunker's candidate. Even in 1979 and 80, early 80, the Republican establishment just were absolutely horrified that Reagan could take it. You never know where your stars are going to come. And so often it's not about ideology. It's about connecting with people and lighting up the campaign trail.
Joe, that is so fundamental to the core of it. I mean, they talk about politics 101. It is recognizing the strength you have in your own backyard. And sometimes that comes when you least expect it, from places you least expect, from people you least expect. And I think Alexandria, as well as others, are representative of that. Look at the number of women around the country who are beginning to emerge, not just in their own right as self-assured women they've always been, but now stepping into a space that they've never been expected to really be a factor in, and they're becoming a factor. So the question for the parties, particularly Republicans, how do you keep this coalition? How do you make it part of your brand? How do you recognize its strength? Well, you don't try to co-opt it, you cooperate with it. You try to create avenues where that expression is played out in neighborhoods, in communities, that translates into votes. That's how you brand. It's not top down, this is who we are, this is what we believe. Everyone gets that innately. The question becomes, how do you let candidates express that? And right now, Democrats seem to have an advantage on that point.
Thanks for checking out MSNBC on YouTube, and make sure you subscribe to stay up to date on the day's biggest stories. And you can click on any of the videos around us to watch more from Morning Joe and MSNBC. Thanks so much for watching.